Someday soon, we're going to be in the land of decent connection.
How much longer is it?
We're another 9 days here. We may go get an AT&T hotspot, trade in our T-Mobile hotspot that doesn't work very well. You know, yeah, I
Just
don't
keep
know.
jumping until something works.
Worth a shot.
I can also upgrade my account so that I can hotspot on my Verizon, because the Verizon network here seems to be the best. Like, because hotspotting off of Dave's phone has been reliable every time. Yeah.
Seems fine for now.
Yeah. Hopefully it survives.
Now I'm on DSL. Like I'm.
Oh, this is the DSL.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Shahruz, I will say the whole internet camera stuff is very interesting. I see myself coming back to it like almost every day or every other day, kind of just checking out what's new. And especially I think since there's new films other than just Hello, there's now like Outside and Window. It's really interesting to be like, oh, is there a new Window picture today?
Cool. Yeah, I love refreshing and seeing everybody's stuff there too.
Yeah, there's definitely something interesting about the fact that the film like massively changes the functionality and the perception of the app without any code updates, right? It's actually just something that's like created a user in some sense, but like changes the framing of entire like possibility space. That I find really interesting.
Cool. If you have any ideas for film roles, I can make them. And I'm going to open that up sometime like within a week too, so anybody can do it.
Sweet. Are you just going to have the person who like mints the film role pay the ETH, or is it still going to be like paid on the back end?
It'll be free while it's on testnet.
Okay, on testnet.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I see.
Yeah, I think we're still like 2 or 3 months away from like a mainnet launch at minimum. So through then, like everything's testing, so everything's free. Just like trying to learn as much as possible.
Why are you thinking 2 or 3 months?
Just broadly, just kind of the scope of the work that's left there, I think. Like there's some very core stuff like moderation, deleting that needs to get figured out. I want to see what comes up through just testing and playing with it with a bunch of people, which I think 2 months sounds like a reasonable amount of time to start doing some of that. Yeah, I think that's roughly the 2 factors there.
Do you have any ideas what you're thinking about for moderation? I was just watching the Vitalik talk that was linked, and I guess he mentioned something about like DAO moderation on the social media stuff. So I was kind of thinking, like, wondering if that's something you're considering.
Yeah, I have it written down somewhere in my notes from like a couple of weeks ago, but I basically think there's a couple tiers. There's one where anybody who's making the film should be able to have like complete, setting of the terms of service. If they need to go in and remove something, they should have that ability. Like I think film can be treated as, its own kind of organization or its own business that the creator is launching. Anybody who owns a photo should be able to delete it by just burning it, which is a standard like NFT pattern already. And then there's the third tier, which is if there's something like illegal, something that absolutely we cannot have, we need a backdoor thing that is probably governed through like a multi-sig that lets us just take down any photo, get it off of IPFS, get it out of the film roll. And I think the multi-sig thing is nice because then it shows, here's who signed off on that. There could be a public discussion as to like what the parameters were, or what the reasoning was. That's roughly where I'm at with that.
Seems way more transparent than the current black box moderation teams. Interesting. And I guess at some point, is there space for like a fourth like hybrid community model where it's kind of like this photo got X reports, now it's like sent to some sort of group of people, maybe randomly that then votes off or on? There's like weird implications.
I think it's a good idea.
Yeah, they have to consent to like potentially seeing like something damaging, but assuming they're in mind with sort of for that role, that could be a way to distribute that.
Yeah, I mean, that might lead into something that's like a temporary kind of mechanic too, of like, you know, if there's 10 reports or whatever threshold percentage or something, like take it down temporarily, put it through a manual review process, and after that it can be reinstated if that can be justified versus, or if deletion cannot be justified, it'll be reinstated. That's a great idea.
It's something so interesting with the blockchain stuff too, because there's like a certain level of different permanence. In the sense, like, I guess maybe on the internet
it's more
camera
permanent
network, it's not.
and
Go ahead, John.
Well, yeah, just that like blockchain makes everything like more permanent, right? Like basically you have this unalterable chain, but it also like somehow breaks apart the access to that, and like actually moves it to more people who hold like some sort of tie-in to it. So in a sense, it's like it's both more permanent and also in some sense like more community owned. In a way that like server IPs and like domain names are really not. Yeah, haven't really thought through everything.
I think there's probably like an interesting thing that needs to happen on the IPFS protocol side as well, where like, because every file has a unique hash, if there is a file that, you know, they know is like illegal content, whether it's copyright or like, you know, illicit or non-consensual photographs or whatever, there should be a way for IPFS to just be like, this hash, unpin it everywhere. Because right now it's basically, you know, we can unpin stuff from our own server, but if anybody's backed anything up somewhere else, there's nothing that we can do to go take that down over there. So there might be something that came through our system to get onto the internet initially that we then, it's just out of our control. Like we can take it out of our chain, we can take it out of our SDK and stuff, but it's still up there, which sucks. But that seems like something IPFS should try to
like a signal that it could just beam out.
Yeah, it's interesting. IPFS and even like Cloudflare potentially, if they have it like cached on their side and it just keeps getting hit regardless of like what's behind. There's like another like level of governance there. It seems like is almost necessary, or like some methodology.
Yeah, it's the Men in Black memory eraser pen. Yeah, but how you get consensus on, interesting. That'll be political.
Yeah.
What's nice is that the clients can now be more responsible for what they do too, right? Like that's another layer here, is that there could be things that are deemed unacceptable within a certain client that whoever created that client gets to enforce and gets to set up their own queries or whatever their own way. So yeah, it's kind of an interesting thing of like, you know, if your Twitter was not one centralized company, but was rather everybody has a service that's fully decentralized, and you get to pick and choose like what your own terms of service are for what you want to see. Yeah, I don't know. You blame less on Twitter and you blame more on your own choices to get you into that zone, kind of.
Yeah, there's. I was just seeing a kind of a funny backwards like flow here of like having a big drop down of privacy policies, and you just like select which ones you want apply to you, and then like those are the ones that you're going to apply to everybody else you interact with. But it's like a double opt-in sort of like a.
Interesting.
It's a different way of doing safe search.
Yeah. No. For me, for some reason, like what you're saying reminds me a lot of like living on my own, as like you're responsible for your dishes. So if you're unhappy like with the dishes in the sink, it's totally on you. You can't blame anyone else. Like you can't blame Twitter for it. You can only blame yourself for controlling it poorly.
Yeah.
It'd be like blaming the company that manufactured your dishes at that point.
Yeah. Interesting. Cool. So shall we start getting
So
Yeah. So I think, just to review, to make sure we're all on the same page, is we're going to try to kind of organize some things in the repo, right? Like that's kind of where we're at, is take whatever we designed from the last call, kind of start to componentize it in some level, and then break that out, and try to like create at least like template like files for all the components and probably the pages and potentially routes as well.
Cool.
Cool.
yep.
Let's see. Kristen, can you help out here? Sweet.
I don't remember. There's this book. I've been like pondering this while you guys were talking. It's about this drug that you can take. It's basically like a psychedelic that allows for like connecting with people mind to mind. It was like a pretty mainstream, like sort of like sci-fi thriller kind of thing. And one of the aspects of it that sort of teed me off was that there's a back door that the creators, the software creators, because there's software associated with this, somehow it's really weird, like biological software can go in if someone is like misusing the software to basically hijack their mind and like stop what they're doing. I don't know, Dave, if you remember the name of that book.
That Nexus series
Yes.
or whatever. Yeah.
So I don't know. That would be an
Is it a fun
interesting
series?
read.
'Cause it
The
certainly
first
sounds
book
fun.
is pretty good, but it's a little much. It's like one of those books where it's like this happens and this happens and this happens and this and you're just like, okay, like it's all happening all the time.
Yeah.
But it's cool because it's like, yeah, mind syncing. Like that part of it is really neat. And like there's,
Yeah.
I don't know, it's a commentary. I think the guy used to work in Silicon Valley Tech, and it's sort of a commentary on utopian technology and then what happens when it gets out because it's not good. That's an aside.
Interesting. It sounds like really interesting. I wanted to drop it in the chat just so I remember, because I love these kind of sci-fi. It sounds like sci-fi thrillery, like and dystopian sci-fi thriller kind of stuff. It sounds super interesting.
It's fun. It's a quick read.
Sweet. All right. All right.
CJ, you can
Okay.
also go into view in Figma and like hide the two panels on the side if you need more real estate. I don't know where the hell it is.
Yeah, I was
And
just saying, where is it? Is it here?
Probably, yeah. And then show hide UI. Yeah.
Oh
Okay.
my God, I never knew that.
Safari's gonna hate me this whole time, but it's fine. Cool. So I guess at least looking at what we have here, there's kind of two main pages as far as I can tell. One is the more like stream / homepage, and then the other is more, this is the post kind of page, right? Yeah. So I guess in one sense, is everyone fine with like this page being indexed? So is it, once you reach, whatever honeycombs or honeycombs.buzzer.life, this is just index?
Yep.
Okay. And then for the post, I'm kind of imagining, just for future compatibility, is that this is like something like /post/ like, I don't know, post ID, or like in the block ID or something, right? Some way of like taking a list of posts and then digging directly into it. I guess like, yeah, thank you, Kristen, like that. Just to make it more concrete, and at least for the initial implementation, we can just hard code the post ID or something, right? Because we'll only have that one post.
Yeah, and /post could maybe presumably redirect the latest.
Yes. So right now we have write, which take everything from index, pop it in post for now. And we're going to call this post page. And at least for now, this should be okay. And this will get at least get a /post. So Shahruz, I kind of have a question. So to actually get like the post ID here, would it just be something like post ID and then like number? That's all you need.
So Next.js has a router component, which comes with a hook. So you use the router to pull the params out. So
Okay.
what we can try out, maybe add a line above 6, above the return. And then const router equals use router.
Use router.
Yep. And then maybe console.log that router from that page just to kind of see what it spits out. Because what it should do is include the params.
We can do rendezvous, huh?
Sounds right. Yep. You want to install for related dependencies?
Yes. Yeah. Okay, so it's just giving undefined, right?
So it's going to a 404 right now because that page, you need to map it now to, you want that last parameter there for the post ID, right?
Yeah.
And that's what you're pulling out. So what, before the use router, sorry, the post.tsx file, you want to make that a directory to represent the /post part in the route.
Okay, so this would be like post.
Yeah.
And then this would be called like index or something instead.
So if you want to grab a variable from the parameters there, what you do is in square brackets in the file name, you put the name of the parameter. So if you wanted to do like post ID or just ID.
Yeah, we can just do ID.
Whoa.
So and it would just be like this.
Yep.
And if you wanted multiple, say like instead, if I did ID like this would just be like one level deeper in that.
Yeah.
Okay.
There's also a syntax for doing an arbitrary amount of like subdirectories, which is just open bracket ... and then the name of like an array that you want to collect all the parameters into, and then a close bracket.
Interesting. Okay.
But now in your log down at the bottom of your browser, you should see query ID1.
Yep.
So that's getting pulled from your URL parameter now. So it's basically router.query.id.
Right. So okay, nice. So now we have our post page and we have our index page. We can probably start pulling other things into either of these once we start defining more like the component structure. Okay, so I'm trying to look at this and kind of come up with multiple components because we're kind of just going to build the page from these like components, kind of is what I'm thinking. Actually, Shahruz, I have one more question kind of before getting into this. Is I saw just now when I was going to GitHub, you have this like next template thing. Do you think this is like a reasonable structure to pull in as well?
That's where this started. So that was a template I used to scaffold the Honeycombs repo.
Oh, gotcha. So you just pulled it out and like made it its own repo.
Yeah.
Got it. Okay.
So yeah, we're already using that structure generally.
Perfect. Okay. Okay, maybe I can throw this out to everyone else. What is the first, like, between these two pages, what is like some commonality that we're seeing between the two?
Definitely block display. Really just a block component, I think.
Mm-hmm. And what are you thinking, John? Is this representing kind of this whole piece here?
I think so. I mean, I think it would have like some information about where it is so that it knows what to display, whether to like displaying like collapsed or expanded mode.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I think it's basically a one-to-one mapping of the block and its appearance on the page.
Yep. So on that, you're like, since there's like kind of these two different styles, does it make sense to have two different files? One is like block and the other is block, like collapsed block, or what? Or does it make sense to just have it in the file and give it a parameter and it just displays differently?
You can use props here, yeah.
Yeah. Is that kind of the best way of going about it?
I think so.
Okay, sweet.
If we're expecting them to be, oh god.
I'm just curious. I vaguely remember what passing a prop means in programming terminology. If you could just explain it for me.
CJ, do you want to take that, or?
I can do my best, and you can kind of correct me as I go. So at least as I see it is, you know, like say we're on just a normal web page like we have here, and all like now this web page is receiving some data from the network, and that data is in some structure. Now that this whole page has that data, and now you want to pass pieces of that data down to something else, that's like a prop, or like a little, it's just like a little structure containing some information that you can now render based on top of, like variables that you can pass throughout the code. Does that make sense, Kristen?
Yeah, I think so. So the piece about it being displayed on a page, is that an important aspect of it, that it's being, I don't know, served up? Like, does it have to be live like that, or can you be passive? Okay.
I guess maybe Shahruz, you can expand more, but you might use a prop just to kind of pass through data as well. Even if it's maybe not displayed, it might be something in the background that, again, like gets queried to the network, or has some other like function that's not displayed directly to the user.
I guess two things I want to add on here is that a component can receive like no props, right? It could be like completely just dumb and static. And the other thing is that at least the way I see it is like props are almost about what you don't pass into it as well, because you're essentially saying this whole like child descending tree of things does not care about this set of information. So we're not even going to like let it have access to it. We're not even going to like try to shove it down there. It's only concerned with this select stream of data. It's going to help scope and just sort of cross effects keep from ballooning.
Cool.
It's also short for properties, so that's generally what those things are doing. It's data to configure the state of a component. So like the design decision that we just made there in terms of how we're building our components, the two branches were, for a block, do we want to have two separate instances of the code showing a collapsed view and a full expanded view separately, or do we want to build one of them that will just take, you know, a true or false as to whether it's collapsed?
So it's using a prop to express the same data but filtered almost. I don't know if I'm saying that right, but
it can be used as a filter. Yeah.
Yep. Cool. Awesome. That was helpful. Thank you.
And
just to answer,
go ahead.
Yeah, to answer the actual question, or I mean, not to answer, but I feel like the one component makes a little more sense here, because there may be different views that we're not aware of yet that wouldn't that, you know, could also be some sort of prop versus a whole nother component.
Definitely, especially if they have a lot of kind of shared information ultimately.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess on that point, does it make sense to kind of, I don't know if it makes sense to define an interface or define a type for the block, since we're using TypeScript here, just to say like, or block view. I'm not sure what the right methodology here is.
Mm-hmm.
It's a good habit for sure.
Yeah, does it make sense more like block or block view and an interface version?
Honestly, I don't know if there's like one standard convention. I think whatever we choose, just try to keep consistent. So if block view makes sense, I think we can do that.
Yep.
Okay.
So name of the component plus view if it's for a view block or for a view component.
Right, because I guess this could just include a block itself, which maybe is more the data layer rather than the view kind of layer. And this
So, yeah,
could be something like collapsed. I don't know the right variable name, but maybe this I can like throw it to do here. Or actually,
Yeah. Collapse.
is there a
Sounds
better
good.
name?
Shrunked.
Shrunked.
Don't have me name anything because it'll all be ridiculous. Collapse seems good.
Cool.
I would also propose that like for variables, we should probably just go with like dealer's choice for a little bit, because otherwise we're going to get stuck on naming them. And if there's something that just doesn't scale, we can come back to it. That's just my suggestion.
Fair.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So is this the collapsed or expanded view is basically for the history? Is this how you're thinking about it, or in terms of like editing, like how? Yeah, I'm just trying to see where you're at.
I think it was more between like this view and this view.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but I think editing is either another state or a component, like within as well. So yeah, maybe worth like kind of looking at right now, whether it's like one of three modes or like some combination. Because I guess you can edit both an expanded or collapsed block, presumably. So they are sort of parallel.
Yeah, because in the post view, like the only functionality that I see being added that's different than the whatever browser view, I guess, is reorderability, which means that there's just an additional control there or something for now. I mean, who knows what all the specifics will be, but and then the component should function the same. Yeah, I don't know. We'll see.
Okay. So since you mentioned edit history, I kind of just threw up another file to contain this guy.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Right. This is kind of what I'm imagining, at least. All of this, the actual button will be contained within the block still.
That makes sense.
That's nice. Okay. And one question that I have is, once we have a block, say here, are we going to directly edit the text and directly edit the context, for example? Or is it going to be broken into like this full kind of editor here?
That at the bottom of the page, like a post that's converted to an edit view.
Okay, so this is more like a pure edit view.
Yep.
Yeah, there's like a couple clever ways of doing this, like because you could just style text areas, you know, and then when you select them, use CSS to show the Chrome. I don't know if we should get into too much of that like fanciness yet. Maybe just get the structure in place. Yeah, so because you could have a preview mode, which is just plain text. And then when you click into it, it shows another state, which is the form effectively. I don't know what your guys' opinion on this stuff is because I haven't built a lot of this in React.
Yeah, same. I mean, I've done a bit of like text form stuff. So there's like third rails to avoid there, but the layout you're describing seems pretty nice. Just a simple state change, and when you leave that form or that field, it just that's a save action or an explicit save click, and it just goes back to the first state. Did you mention also the little pattern to essentially render all of your text up front as editable text fields, just minus the border, and then that again, I guess that's all contingent on one Boolean field either, so that's going to be an easy switch to do later. But that sounds kind of nice.
And then it's CSS heavy that way.
Yeah.
I don't know what like performance wise or anything if there's a hit if you're like reordering these. I don't, I have no idea about that side of things at this point. Yeah. I do know that if you're just spitting out text that's uneditable, it's going to be lighter, but who knows where the state of browsers are these days.
Okay, so on that point, at least for now, in the same block view, I just added this editing thing. And I guess I'm imagining when you hit like plus text or plus image, it's basically creating a new block view here that just happened to be in edit mode by default.
Yep.
That's interesting, and that is very like easy to understand. So there's no like weird staging kind of. It's just like every action actually does something, and you just sort of walk through the steps. Yeah, it's nice and clear.
Yeah, and I guess maybe I'm not sure what will happen inside this block. Like this could turn into something. Oops. I don't know if this will turn into something like edit block, and versus just the normal, a normal like div for normal block or something. So this gets componentized as well. So it's more just conditional, like, what is the syntax here? I forget. View dot editing. If
So the JS that's inline within a JSX scope, you can't use like if. Like they don't let you do
so
full logic, just expression. So you got to do ternary. Yeah.
Okay. Otherwise, do something else. Does it need returns here, or is it fine? So is this valid?
Should be.
Yeah, there's a bunch of clever stuff we can do here.
You know what it's complaining about.
We get.
I think because edit block isn't defined yet, probably.
Yeah.
Okay. And is that something that we want to just kind of componentize off the bat, or just wait till we hit it?
I think let's get it. Let's get it in.
Okay. Block. And I guess for now, this can take the same. I'm missing something.
So your default export from your block component is the view itself, not the interface. So if you want to grab
so you
it,
gotta wrap.
Yep.
Okay.
And then here, what I noticed is you want round You want parentheses instead of curly brackets around the edit block.
Okay. And then this would just be imported as well. And then this needs some prop, but it's fine for now. Can we just give it view? How does this work?
I think you can do ... view within parentheses there. It's
Within.
Shorthand. I don't use very often. Within, sorry, curly brackets.
Curly braces.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that just passes the prop.
Yep.
Okay. Okay. So I guess so far this is covering all of this stuff. All of this. Do we need something for the sidebar here as well? Like some
I think so. I mean, have in just a high level template somewhere.
Yeah.
okay.
Which we kind of already have, I think.
So I guess this would be kind of componentizing out like whatever is in the whatever's in here.
Yeah, I would rip the header out of this and move it too.
Can we just call this header?
Right.
Great. And this whole block can be moved, and then we can import it in a second. I'm just going to copy all this too. Paste. This is all fine. And we're going to call this, just call this header block. This. And then we're probably missing some state stuff as well. Huh? Okay. Okay. And I guess this would be also the home for any of these components. And is this something that we also want to componentize directly? Is like this is like a query bar or something?
Yeah.
Yeah. Query bar is nice. Yeah.
No. Call this. Okay. This
So
plus button. Yeah.
Sorry. One quick thing in the main layout, there's still the header CSS that we should move to your header component.
Okay. Let's see. This is underscore app. Oh, I see. This whole style block.
At what point would we think about moving CSS out to separate files, if at any point, like until it just gets unwieldy in the template?
So each style JSS block is, or sorry, I think there's a lag.
Oh yeah, no, just that I definitely like. Yeah, I like having it in the same file, like whenever possible. But I'm wondering if there's a point in the future at which it moves out of there and what that is.
I've yet to come across that in any project, because each one is componentized and scoped to that component. So they tend, like, even when they're long, they're generally manageable.
Right, because they're just very targeted and relevant.
Yeah.
Awesome. Sweet.
I guess if it gets too big, it could be a signal that the component needs to be like broken into multiple components.
Yep.
Exactly.
Okay. Okay, query bar. Should we have like an add button component? I'm just kind of like guessing on these things now.
No, yeah, I think so, because yeah, there may be like a little animation stuff that happens there, a little bit of state stuff, like it needs to know what sort of posts you can make and can't make.
What is it? New block.
Yeah.
Maybe call it like new block button or new block
Yeah.
control. So
Okay. I guess. Button. I should strip all this out. Okay. New block button. Do we want to do this sidebar or in the just on the top? Is it in the header or is it a sidebar?
Just toss it in the header for now, and then we can
Toss it in the
dish
header.
it out wherever we. Yeah.
Okay.
Because I mean, we can talk about structuring the page. Yeah, I don't know the best way to go about doing that, because you can just have everything in the header and then position it absolutely or whatever. Again, you can do a bunch of CSS nonsense here and keep the page structure simple where we have one column effectively.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know. Best practice there.
Okay, sounds good. We'll just keep it for now, and maybe we can figure out more design level stuff later. I think maybe one thing missing is like the connect wallet button as well. So as Shahruz, do you have any naming convention on this that you've used previously?
connect wallet button sounds fine.
Right. We'll just take this.
I posted some code snippets in the Discord that'll save time on exactly this kind of process, by the way.
Sweet. I kind of figured that we went over it, I think, previously. So now it's just kind of pulling in the code for it. I guess probably we have it actually written somewhere in right or something, parts of it.
Oh, sorry, I meant like naming the components. So you can just grab the file name. It'll grab the file name and then it'll scaffold out exactly what your complete file is here based on
this
the file
is
name.
nice.
Wait, what?
Wait, what?
I totally
it's basically like a function that
understanding.
VS Code runs.
Yeah.
It's kind of like the pre-fill in ease, right? Where you just like where it recognizes you're trying to create a module and it like just takes the name of whatever you're doing and spits out a bunch of code.
Yeah.
Like for init blocks and stuff.
So if you copy those into your VS Code snippets, then anytime you open up a new nextjs file,
where is the VS Code snippets? I've actually
I think if you do
I'm
Command P,
yeah,
which should be no, maybe it's Shift Command P. I've got my own keyboard shortcuts too. And then
for the one for
snippets,
the commands, not the file. Yeah.
Configure user snippets, and then new global snippets file, and then like nextjs snippets or something.
And doesn't need the file name.
I don't think so. And then just paste that in.
This is where text edit would have been the right choice. Okay.
Save it. And then if you just make like a new nextjs or a new component file, just to test it out. Like, yeah. Now type RFC for React functional component, and you've got it named based on your file name.
Okay, well,
Nice.
that's gonna definitely, I'm gonna have to go through all these, but okay. I'm writing that down as reference because I'm
Some good
probably
time
gonna forget
savers in
unless I.
there.
Yeah, for sure. Okay. Great. That's amazing. Wow. That's sweet.
Yeah. Gotta fight back carpal tunnel however possible.
Yes. Okay, so I connect wall button. Great. And now this is awesome. Let's see.
An avatar, maybe?
Yeah, that makes sense. RFC.
Done.
That's gonna blow my mind just continually. Great. Okay.
So this is where I'm like not very familiar with how granular components become. Like even within the edit and the block component, like the a separate one, or is that just like all defined within the snippet within like positioned, with CSS? At what point, I guess, is the line which you go, okay, this should be a component? Because I imagine there's a thing such as over compartmentalization.
Sure.
We all want to avoid that.
Yeah, I don't know if there's like an exact heuristic there, but like if you expect over half or 60% of the code to be reused somewhere else in a different context, maybe that's the right time to componentize it. I also think like you can generally start off by just building things within the components that you've scaffolded early on. And if you find yourself repeating stuff and you're like, oh, it's annoying that I have to copy paste this over and over again. That's a good component time kind of signal.
Yeah, that's been I prefer to work that way because then everything's just sort of laid out, and then not optimizing for components too early keeps it like fiddleable in a certain type of way. It's messy, but like, and then once your sort of patterns harden, you componentize it. So, or if there's like a very obvious win in like you're putting it everywhere, and then you just move to props on everything. So,
yep, that makes sense. So kind of excited about the fact that there's no account page to worry about, no profile page.
Yeah.
No, like auth step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4. Oh my God, like it's pretty thin. This is nice.
Yeah.
Should we have one for the button where we've got one that says post and one that says save, but they're the same style?
Yeah.
Is this just our generic button?
Yep. These things can get elaborate.
These things can get
Button
elaborate.
component. Yeah, because you got a million different button types and stuff. But for now, we got one. So.
And I guess this might have some level of interface to it, like
yeah.
And we can do like color, string. I don't know, text, string. Yeah. Any other minor things for button to start, or just leave it here?
On-click. An on-click thing that you can pass.
Okay. Yeah, so it would literally be like.
Yeah, I think probably with the capital C just for a convention. And then I think that can return a void. Yeah.
Okay. Sweet. That's nice. I guess maybe something around the like editing or the checkbox here. Is this something that we'll need to do separately as well? Because that's going to have some functionality associated with it. Or does that just get kind of shoved into the block for the time being?
No, I think it's a good call because I think so far we've been splitting up based on views and where those things will be reused. But what you just pointed out is that there's going to be really specific like functionality within that component that you probably don't want getting mixed up in the rest of the block code, right? Like that hitting that checkbox needs to run a side effect of like this some state goes and gets updated somewhere. So that's also generally a good case for splitting it up.
What is this checkbox? Because it's adding in like toggle. It's like a
publish, toggle view, toggle.
Because it's specifically toggling, adding or removing a block from the post.
A block to post.
Toggle include.
Post something. Yeah.
Toggle include. Post include.
Yeah, maybe post include. So, I mean, I don't know if there'll be future and toggles for include.
I guess this is also something that
Oh, you
could
did
be
just toggle post include.
Yeah, I'm guessing this is like one design pattern that probably will change, especially if there are multiple posts, that this is going to go away quite quickly.
Yeah, this is just a stand-in for now.
And is it worth like componentizing like this whole section? Because I think initially I just highlighted this whole thing and this is the block, and I guess maybe including the history as well. And now this is the block history. This is, I guess, all part of the block. Does it make sense to kind of take out the like block header, componentize it, or just leave it? Call it good.
Call it good.
Call it good.
Till it's not.
Great.
Yeah.
Till it's not.
Basically one text box now, so the rest of it is the header. I'm wondering if it might be interesting to wire up this first edit, or not edit, but include checkbox, and to see how that state stuff is handled, because I feel like that might answer some questions for me about how the rest of the block interaction stuff is going to happen. Might kind of give us a nice scaffold if there are like component stuff that is popping out.
Can you elaborate on that? I didn't quite get.
Yeah, basically, assuming we don't have any more like components that need to be created, I'm wondering if one step is we actually continue mucking about in the post include component and essentially layer up the state to it in order to like have it propagate, because I'm like very rough when it comes to React. I'm like not visualizing this yet, but I'm hoping once I see that I can sort of feel how the rest of it looks as well.
Okay, so at least the first thing that comes to my mind when hearing that is, do we need to start thinking more about like how the backend is going to get integrated? Because right now we have essentially no data layer. We just have the pure like view layer as far as I can see.
There's probably some work that we could do before that too. Like I wonder if just in JSON, for the sake of getting to the point that John just described, like in JSON, if we just defined like 2 or 3 posts and made an array, or 2 or 3 blocks and made an array, and just use that as like dummy data to scaffold with.
Yeah, that sounds helpful.
Is there any good place to like put like this random like test kind of, like this is essentially like test kind of information that could be reused later as well?
Yeah, maybe just data inside source, another directory.
Oh, that's a file. Whoops. And then do blocks for now.
So one thing I like to do anytime I make a new directory inside the source folder is make up an import shortcut for that. So if you open up tsconfig.json, should be the last. Yeah. You see it up on lines 5 and 6. Basically just duplicate that for data. And now when you import, you'll just be able to do import from @data / blocks.json.
Oh, I see. So it's
So instead of doing like
putting
relative,
a mapping.
Yeah.
Yeah, relative paths, you can just do and it knows the directory to pull from.
Yeah.
Got it. And this is all relative
questions.
to the root. Great.
Yep. Which keeps things like super clean for like primitive kind of buckets like app and data and server side.
Okay. Okay. I'm also curious about like say you have like 2 repos, and like how do you work with that in an NPM environment and also where it's on your local machine?
Yeah. I've been working through that mess the past couple of weeks. I don't know if there's like a great answer that I'm aware of yet. But there's a tool called Lerna, Lerna, that is the closest I've found so far, which basically you can set up multiple packages within the same repo, and it will keep them in sync. And then when you want to version them, it'll keep all those versions in sync, and it'll manage publishing it to Git and NPM. But while you're working locally, it'll just point at, whatever the local versions of those packages are that are in development.
Okay.
It's probably, probably too soon to integrate now, because that'll be like a complex kind of thing that could break a lot of things too.
Almost its own effort to integrate. Okay.
I think so, yeah.
So I guess now we can start defining some level of JSON file with block data. And I might have, I might have already partially done this. I don't think so. Okay. But I do have some level of
type definition.
Oh man. Vim clipboard does not carry.
Yeah, that has gotten me so many times.
Okay. These all need to be in quotes, don't they?
Yep.
I think so.
Okay. Let's see if I can get this. Word, delete, there, down. Oop. Beautiful. Actually, that one can stay. Parent, I guess we can just do null. Creator. Anyone have an address? I can probably pull
Stick yours in there.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to pull it from somewhere. Great. Date time. Oh, we need an ISO string too.
Brianna, I mean,
Unix timestamp.
I think it's ISO 8061.
something epoch. Oh,
we can also change it, but I think we decided on ISO plus time zone.
Oh right, yeah.
That sounds right. Yeah.
I think that would probably still be on that epoch time zone website. I'm probably pronouncing it wrong, by the way. Never heard anybody else say it out loud.
That's how I've heard it too. Yeah.
Okay.
I have no idea. Wait.
Yeah, I think it was the one right up a little bit that had GMT in the time zone.
This one?
I think
This
so,
is,
right?
so it's RFC2. There's too many time conversions. I think I'm just gonna do D equals new date. And then
Perfect.
right, this must be, there must be a two-string method on this. Well, let's just take that.
Cool.
I hope this is ISO. I don't think it is though. I don't think that, hold on. There's gotta be a
Yeah, I don't know why, because I think Monday and the date are redundant here. Yeah, there. That looks fair.
There we go. That looks better. Type, text, context. This is context.
This is block.
Okay, well. 6, 7.
There's a loose question mark on the daytime as well, on the key name.
Yes.
Yeah, for some reason I'm like, maybe that belongs there. I'm not sure. It's like an interesting. It would be an interesting convention. I'm not sure what it would be. It's like this thing may have a time, may not.
Okay, good enough for now.
Yep.
Great.
Great.
Now, I guess is there like Command P? How do you search for files?
Across the entire project.
Is it, oh, it is P, huh?
Yeah.
There some import here. I guess this would be at data / blocks.
Yep. You want to include the .json as well. Yeah.
Okay. And then I can reference these blocks directly.
Mm-hmm.
So I can do something like blocks.map.
Yep.
Blocks.data.map. Is this valid? It's outside div. This is the problem.
Yeah, I would move it above the style block. Usually the style block is down at the bottom.
Yeah, that makes sense. And then we can add, we're probably going to want to import block from, is there at components? Probably
There's
not.
an at app, but you can set up an at components. Yeah.
And this can be block. And I guess probably in the block we need to modify. This is part of the block view. And I guess we can actually add the data. Well, I have this type defined elsewhere. Whoops. Let's pull it back. That's not going to work. This seems okay.
Yep.
Okay. Just trying to check. Did I miss anything? And I guess.
So I've got another shortcut in the snippets. So if you do JSON -preview. Yep. And then just pop in like the name of a variable. So like view, in this case, your props. This will just spit out all the JSON that it's receiving. So just for like quickly setting up components without getting into the views, you'll always be able to see what data you got.
That's wonderful.
Great. That is wonderful. And I guess maybe one thing that we can do here also is just throw in our, what is this? this is the toggle post include, right? That we wanted to add. And I guess we can pass the whole view props for now. I don't know if it's gonna like that. Let's go this one step at a time. An index, let's make sure that we're actually displaying all these. So now if I want all of this, I can do like, I think I called it block. All right, this would be block, and then block. Need to clean some of this up. Data, collapsed, and editing. So I can pull these three, right? And then back to index. And this would be block. Collapsed would be false. Editing, so false to start.
The syntax here would be a little bit different.
Okay, what's the
we'd
syntax
probably
here?
want to send. So I would toss the curly brackets from the outside, and then data equals curly brackets block.
Okay.
Yeah, and then no commas, just loose.
No commas, it's normal like HTML like syntax.
Exactly, yeah.
So everything within each pair of curly braces is like its own executed thing. So there could be code in there too, right?
Mm-hmm.
Nice. It's per variable.
Does not seem to like this. This is probably not index.
You
So
might
I
need to
name it something
restart
else?
the server after
Okay, so it can-
setting up one of
so it
those
can get-
paths.
Makes sense. Oh, whoa, hello.
Are we not getting our header now either?
I probably dropped the header is the problem.
Oh.
Okay, so component page props. Where is this going to?
That's pulling open whatever page is specified by the
Got it.
route.
By the route.
So,
So this
index
should
page
pull
is
up
perhaps
index.
Yeah.
I guess we can throw in some like, just like an H1 that says like text or something. Okay.
That's there. So if you're not returning anything from the map right now. Boom.
Wow.
Okay. So, well, at least there's our raw data, which is nice.
Mm-hmm. There it is.
Okay. So now I want to close like a bunch of these. This is getting really unwieldy. Okay. So now toggle post include is doing nothing. I guess we can also do. I kind of just want to have some visualization because this is nice. Actually, that's fine. So toggle post include. Let's see. What do we need for this?
The block's ID probably.
Block ID. Should we just pass the entire block since we have it here?
Sure.
I guess later on this type is probably going to require something like token ID or something as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was wondering whether there would be like some way of deterministically getting that from each device or like a lookup table, or is it just baked into the data as close as possible?
I mean, that would ultimately probably be represented by the IPFS hash, I think, for what the block's like ID. Probably. I mean, you could do a numerical like sequence on top of that. But yeah, not sure.
Yeah, seems reasonable.
Gonna pull it. Doesn't I don't know what a block is.
It might be confusing it for the component.
Oh,
So you might want to call that
That work?
block type, the type one that you have, just so that you don't get the wrong import.
and then we can go back to block and change this guy. And then this needs to take view. Okay, so now we pass the whole block to it, right? The toggle post include. This probably needs some kind of like checkbox. What is the type? How do you define a checkbox in HTML? I don't know. Is it input?
Type equals
Type.
checkbox.
Yeah.
Is it checkbox?
I think so.
Mhm.
And then selected is the HTML representation of it, but I don't know if we're doing.
I think it's checked.
Ah, yeah.
That's going to be some.
It accepts like truthy values.
Actually, checked by default is probably false.
Yeah.
In the props, is there a way to like define a default value?
Yeah, for a Boolean, not including it is also the equivalent of a false. What you could do is put a question mark in front of checked, or in front of the colon.
I broke something.
Yeah, so now if you don't pass in a checked prop, so it'd be view.checked. Yeah.
Yep. Okay.
So now if the parent were to include a checked prop, that would be checked by default. But because it doesn't yet, it's unchecked.
So if I like, can I console.log view.checked and it'll actually change?
So
no,
it doesn't right now because React isn't managing the state of that checkbox. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So we'd need to define like something like checked. That's nice. No. Set checked equals, what is it?
Use state.
Use state. And do we need to give it a type? What's the?
You can give it a default value and it can determine the type from that. So if you wanted to say false, and then you got to wrap. Yeah. So you need to put a const and then square brackets around those.
Okay.
And then your checked, you want to change that to your local checked state. And then set an onchange event handler. Oh, wait.
Right. So change, and then this would be something like set checked. Does it need to take the event and pass it in?
Yep.
And then is e dot
target
dot
checked, I think.
Sounds right.
There's so many of these like magical like state things that I just don't
Yeah.
know. Okay.
It's working.
Okay.
We got our pre-published process. It's good.
Does that answer kind of what you were going for as well, to see how things are passed?
Yeah, this is pretty close. Though Shahruz did bring up a great point around like backend and how much of it we're sort of just, I guess, mucking for now. But as far as like, I think local state inter component, yeah, like this is good. Feeling more clear on that.
Okay, sweet.
Yeah.
Because I guess at least these basic blocks allow us to do some level of mocking UI as well for all of these components.
Yep.
Yeah. Do we want to start getting into more like backend kind of routes as well?
I think so while we're here.
Or is there anything else on the front side of things that we can do that I'm missing?
Seems like a good start.
Yeah, I guess the maybe one thing is like the index and how much it displays at first. I think that could be left as just like display all blocks until we hit an issue, because neither pagination nor state-based scrolling loading are fun. Maybe there's just like something simpler that we'll see later.
Mm-hmm.
But that's also kind of a render thing, not really a display thing.
Yes.
Yeah, not seeing much.
So can you talk to me about like the process if you were to move to backend? So like there's lots of stuff we can dummy into the page, obviously, like, but got the basics. And so here you'd be setting up like just the sort of functional plumbing to get a new like block and these kinds of things. Is that where you're?
Yeah, at least I think it would be, and maybe I have this wrong. So I guess since I haven't like totally thought about this since our last couple calls, but previously here, I have to go really slow. There's kind of like just a few main APIs, which would be create block.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Upload and view block. So create block would kind of, so the interesting thing, at least that I'm thinking, and actually why I had this other thing here is I tried to start creating a library that takes all of this out of actually needing it on the back end, is kind of componentizing it. So this is purely like front end code essentially. And then on the back end, we just call some other JavaScript library, which handles talking with anything happening on the blockchain, essentially. Because most of those are just going to be GraphQL queries into the graph, as far as I can tell. And some of them are going to be really basic, like, I don't know, I guess creating some of this, I guess like creating a block is just going to go directly from the form into that library onto IPFS, onto the blockchain. And that can be, at least as far as I can tell, like mostly taken care of by a third-party library or like our own library, but it doesn't need to exist inside of Honeycombs itself. Mostly so if someone else, like if I wanted to write a different application that produces blocks in a different way, I can just say, okay, use this library and just put your blocks using this. Don't worry about how this works on the back end. You're going to get this nice block interface, which allows you to build your main UI stuff.
Yep.
So I'm actually not sure what routes we actually need server side for honeycombs?
I mean, it seems like we can jump to, I don't know whether now or later, but just having those be on a test net, right? If we want our data stored there, yeah, I don't know if it would make sense to set up intermediary, like any API routes within the app, if we just want to talk to the blockchain directly for those.
Right, I think so as well, is because using the testnet is effectively free too.
100%, yeah.
Yeah. And does the same go for Polygon? So
for Polygon's testnet, yeah.
Polygon's testnet. So we can basically do all of this like on the testnet for free and get everything we need. And the graph has a way of even querying the testnets or indexing the testnets.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
It feels like it answers quite a few questions.
So I guess now getting into this, does it make sense to do this now synchronously, or is this where we start moving into more async work where there's a bunch of scaffolding here? I get like what more needs to be solidified in the sync session now?
Yeah, that's a good question.
Yeah, so
we don't
go ahead. Sorry.
Well, yeah, I just wanted to say that I think everything we just mentioned can still be done without necessarily answering questions about post-publish stage and how the whole interaction is, I think. So like, I think that we, still do have quite a bit of space to work with here, even without going back into design. So I guess, yeah, Dave, if you were saying something.
Yeah, I mean, it's my selfish little corner of the thing. Like, so, because I can dummy in, like we've got the general placement of stuff. I can dummy in controls, right? That could be bound up. I can give CSS on any of this stuff. And then, I don't know if I can't really, I don't really know how to write components and, or like prompts or props or anything like that. So I can just give that state stuff in there. I mean, that's where I'm seeing where we're at on that front. I don't know if that helps, or I can definitely do that async. But if there's any other logic that goes in there, I can work around it. So this is, yeah.
Yep.
Okay, so I think I'm thinking of a couple things. One is like much smaller, is for the components directory, do we want to just keep it all as just like mishmash of files and then break it down later into something?
Yep.
I prefer mess.
Mess. Okay, we'll go with mess.
Yes.
The second is, I think maybe even thinking about, writing that JSON file and pulling over the schema directly from whatever we had here on this Figma document. Are there any changes, or like, maybe not changes, but if we're now going to start moving this towards the blockchain and the graph, does it make sense to define like the GraphQL schema that we're actually going to query from or query based on? And is that going to be just block?
I feel like that might be something that could be fun to play live with, which would mean having a contract deployed.
Okay. Okay.
But I think with that gist that I shared like a couple sessions ago, we were pretty close. So that could be like one little async task, is just getting that, with the Open Zeppelin utilities instead of the
manually written,
the crappy handcrafted ones. It's pretty close. Yeah.
Can you explain the piping there again? Like what you're like? Could you just do like a lay explanation of where the contract is and how the block and like what? Yeah. and the relationship to the graph, I guess.
Sure. So right now we're posting files to IPFS that contain our block information. But they just get lost into the IPFS world. There's nothing pointing to them that we can reference. That is our kind of canonical, series of blocks. So that's one of the jobs that the contract should solve, is just storing references to IPFS hashes as blocks. The contract itself, even when it's deployed to the blockchain, isn't easily queryable, because that's just not what the blockchain is designed to do. There's certain functions that are easy, like balance of an account with something where it's just pulling back a number. But if you want to pull back arrays or lists of things that are ordered or sorted in specific ways or filtered somehow, blockchain directly inefficient for that. So what the graph does is it runs a decentralized network of computers that are listening to events happening on the blockchain. And then when those happen, it runs very quick events that basically can restructure, reformat that data into a traditional Postgres database, which can be queried the way any Postgres database can be queried.
Got it. Okay, so the functional component of like what we're doing to relate to like having the like this piece of the blockchain indexed, like I guess, okay, we're playing in that area then. Okay.
Yeah, so I think at that point, like the block schema is a design challenge around what is the most efficient way to store that information that gives us all the relational ability that we will want later on. The graph schema is directly how can we structure this data so that we can query it effectively. So there's different considerations where it's less about efficiency on the storage side and more about flexibility and power on the querying side.
So in other words, the graph schema might have like some redundant fields in some sense, but they're not truly redundant. They're just different ways of saying like the same thing that's still pulling from the block schema. And it's just saying, hey, we're pulling this out so that you can like easily understand it and sort by it.
Yeah. So within our schema, we have like references to parents. With the graph, those references can actually be tied to other database records so that you can query them more deeply. You can identify relationships between them. You can get counts of things. So if you want to see, this post was referenced 5 times, that's very easy to do on the graph. But if you wanted to do it from the blockchain, you'd have to pull every IPFS file manually on the front end and then process all those manually on the front end. The graph just kind of does that as part of its own process.
Got to buy more graph tokens. Cool. Yeah, thanks.
Yeah, no problem. But yeah, so to CJ, to answer your question, I think that's super fun to play with once you've got a contract up.
Yeah.
But otherwise, trying to predefine a schema, a lot less fun and probably a lot more just like kind of shooting in the dark too, because you can't test it immediately and see what kind of results you get.
Totally. So is this kind of a good like stopping point where we can maybe like define a couple async tests? So I guess one would be like putting the contract on the testnet, rewrite it. So I would love to give it a rewrite and post another gist or something for review before like actually putting it on a testnet. And also just learning how to go through deploying it to a testnet, I think would be pretty fun. I don't know if that's something we also want to do sync, is once it's at that stage is maybe getting it all prepared and then deploying it to the testnet and then starting to build the graph stuff on top of it.
Yeah, it sounds like maybe a nice place to pick up the next session and have any other async tasks that happened in between get merged on the same flow.
Cool. I'm not sure if there's a couple other tests. There's 2 other ones that I was thinking of. Was on the create block side of things, at least having a form of some kind. So once it is deployed on the testnet and the graph is there, we could actually produce blocks into the thing quite easily. That would be also pretty sweet. to at least kind of have some idea in advance of, and maybe even sign in with wallet if that's like easy to go for.
Yeah, I
You
can
got that,
definitely
right?
poke at the form stuff.
Right. Which part of that? Sorry, I might be off.
No, yeah. So the two things mentioned there, I think part form, CJ, is you're talking about filling out kind of edit block and having that connect up to our block creation. The separate thing from that is the connect to wallet, which we already have working. So that really just needs to get moved into the header maybe, and like we maybe listen to events on that somehow.
Right.
I'm not sure if there are any. Yeah, but.
And I don't know if there's I guess Dave, like any other async work on the design stuff too would be nice to spruce it up a little.
Yeah, I think I'll go just dummy and controls connect to whatever is in there that's built so far.
Yep.
And then I can just do scaffolding stuff, and then we'll have stuff to tie in real quick.
Okay, and I guess one thing on that to dummy stuff is, I'm just imagining at least, like in the index, whatever you change in here, you can kind of just throw the block, and hopefully there's enough syntax here where, or you can throw like some new thing like edit history.
Yeah.
And have some level of information there. You might have to like add some stuff to JSON or things like this.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I think it's spitting out enough for me to goof around with. And if not, then I can yell at one of you to help.
Is there a naming convention that we want to use for branches for these pull requests?
Typically, I just do add hyphen feature name hyphen or whatever, like how many words that is, or like I guess add there could be a different verb. Sometimes it's like refactor, sometimes it's clean up.
Cool.
Roughly my convention.
Works for me.
Cool.
Sweet.
So for the form, kind of picturing like that state change happen, except input, there's like a very rough button that, kicks off an event, and that event just creates a JSON block that conforms to the block type schema and exposes it for shipping off to.
Yeah, I guess as long as it's stored in a variable in the state somewhere, then once it's in the state, we can easily just do like some call from there.
Yeah. Okay. So basically just packaging it up and getting it ready.
Yep.
Cool. This makes good sense.
Yeah. It's filling some stuff.
Yeah.
Is there a little bit of something for everyone there?
I think so. Kristen can help me remember what we talked about.
It sounds like that's like a good chunk of that is already done, because I was keeping an eye on current squawk, and I'm really digging these like time-stamped like table of contents video layers. I don't even know what to call it, but I'm very excited for when we do wire it up. It's going to be a very nice way to like access my own brain and memory.
Yeah. I mean, I would not be able to keep track of all this without all that stuff.
Many thanks.
Kristen, how are you keeping track of the minutes? Do you have like a timer ongoing that you're doing, or just from the time itself?
Yeah, just from the time itself. I don't know if it's accurate either. I should start like a stopwatch or something. I have it up on the computer.
Yeah, I mean, also picture a very lightweight Discord bot that maybe like does at least some of this, or like responds to messages once in a while, that with the timestamp. Yeah, lots of weird possibilities here. But if you do see something, and we're almost getting to the point where I could like see a little bot existing. Those are not like massive lifts. So if we can, compile like little, maybe in a certain channel, like bot functionalities or something, and yeah, see if there's any like recurring ones and start maybe fleshing those out too.
Yeah,
Little
so we'd
pipes.
want like something that based on a start time stamping mechanism. Yeah.
Yeah, and I guess some way to probably start it too is like once the recording starts is just making sure to like type /start or something to the bot.
Yeah. Something simple like that.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
Alrighty. Nice. Cool.
When are we meeting next?
Let's see. I think I'm good with aiming for Friday roughly.
Yeah.
I have a vague event on my calendar that like I may be out for, maybe not. So I'll confirm that within a few hours. But if we want to just roughly aim for our usual slot on Friday, 3 Pacific-ish.
Sure.
That works for me. Yeah, I think the following week, like Monday through Wednesday, I'm on. So Friday works nicely before that.
Great.
Cool.
Lots of colors on your calendar.
Awesome.
Very nice.
Lots of colors.
Yeah, nice. At least on the right one. Yeah. Thanks.
Oh, on the right one. Oh, I forgot I was sharing my screen. I was like, what colors?
Yeah.
It's only green.
Yeah. My friend texted me after the first screen share, and he's like, your phone number is in there. And I'm like, oh. Oops. But like, I wonder if at some point we're going to need some sort of like
You can like blur things, I think.
Is it reasonably painless in YouTube? I mean,
Yeah,
I don't really care about a phone number, but
yeah,
right, at
you
some
can
point, if there's like,
also
instead of
trim in YouTube without having to leave the app. So they've got like basic editing. I don't know what else they have besides that.
Yeah, that should be plenty. Yeah. Yeah, and then I'm like worried about data, I guess. I'm just imagining eventually at some point there may be things that sneak in that shouldn't be in there.
Yep. CJ's top secret calendar.
Yeah, my top secret calendar that has virtually nothing on it.
That's the
it's
secret.
Actually not. It's none of my events. It's all my girlfriend's events.
Yeah.
Cool. So I guess very minimum for next week is just hopefully deploying something or getting something ready to get deployed for the testnet, and everything else on top is kind of bonus.
Yeah.
And would just be really sweet.
Yeah, maybe one more thing we can take care of right now is the ownership structure of Vercel, because it was blocking deploys. And I'm wondering if we just move it over to the Buzzard Gmail account, and that should give everybody access. That way, anybody that creates a branch should also be able to create a VB deploy. Although I'm not sure if it blocked that from happening. But at any rate, people go in there and muck around with things if needed.
I think there might need to be like a GitHub action at some stage there where it listens for a push to the main branch, and then through whatever the shared Vercel account is, triggers that. So instead of using Vercel's own like
Ah.
listener, we just route it through a
Yes.
GitHub action using whatever that one account is.
Okay.
That being said, I mean, if we're, or go ahead.
Well, yeah, I guess I'm wondering
Like-
is that basically because Vercel isn't going to do that if it's a user account that doesn't match the primary, or are you envisioning a different?
I think so,
like,
yeah. Because we would have to
possible.
basically set up a secondary Git profile that's all with that other email address.
Got it.
This also,
Yeah.
I think, is temporary because based on the current scope and what we're talking about, we don't have any backend functionality that's baked into the Next.js repo. It's all generating static HTML, and that should continue to be the case. So Vercel might just be like a temporary thing too. Like the whole thing could be on IPFS, or it could be on a static file host.
True.
That we can set up a more, optimal user flow for here.
Yeah. Yeah, it's definitely blocking. And in the meantime, I don't mind pushing things through if we don't want to sort it out right now. I guess it's just make sure that.
Yeah, I was just going to ask who
all
has the permissions for that.
I think me, because I created the team and I'm so far the only owner of it of some sort because we're not paying, but I'm still a little hazy on how the account structure is done. Looking now. Actions. Yeah, this is where just having a private key login would be very nice. So yeah, we can create a team, but that's not really what we want either. Also, do they have a free team plan? To double check this.
No, I think it's just free if you're like on the hobby
That's the
plan
thing.
solo.
Got it. Yeah, that's where we're on now.
This is basically like the whole racket now is like you got to pay $20 to be able to push to GitHub.
Yeah. Yeah, it's yeah, good racket. Very effective.
It's always fun to find paywalls in the most unassuming of places. $20 one time or $20 a month then?
A month.
Basically per
That's how
user
they
per
get
month.
Oh.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
That is
so
how they get you.
Yeah. Maybe create a new GitHub account, just some buzzword@gmail does make sense. And that way, for now, there's like if there's any integrations that do need to be made, like this temporary Vercel, that can be owned and tied to that. And then as things go on, they just kind of proliferate out. So I could probably take care of that. Async can just ping you when I transfer it over. Kristen, you're muted.
Dave, what's the email?
hey@buzzard.life. And then
And that's managed by domains?
Yeah. And then I'm hosting it on, what is this thing called? Migadoo.
Migadoo.
I can send you the login to the admin on that.
Perfect.
Yeah, your face.
I'm like, what is Migadoo? Like, how do you spell this?
It's like some independent, they're going to keep it running forever, it costs nothing.
This is
email
nice.
Service. Yeah.
This is, I haven't seen this.
Wait, how do you spell this?
Simple.
I don't know.
It's MIGAD. Yeah, DU.
Yep. DU. I did DO. Okay.
That's a reasonable guess.
This is interesting.
Oh wow. There's limits on in and out per day. Interesting to see.
Oh, cool. That's how they keep it free.
It's paid. I think it's like $19 a year or something like that. They've been around for a while. Yeah. And we're not
has a very pinboard feel to it.
yeah, very of that ilk. I forget where they're at, but you know, it's like a small
Looks
team.
like
And
Switzerland.
yeah,
Interesting.
I'm all right with the Swiss holding my emails. They're good at putting things in vaults and keeping them alive. Anyhow,
Yeah.
so
Okay.
I can. We can
So,
figure
yep,
out how we're
I'll take care
going
of
to
that.
share passwords and all that stuff, but we can figure it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool.
Until we have email that doesn't need the damn passwords, but
Exactly.
for now,
Mhm.
messenger pigeons.
Digital.
Hmm.
I love email being equated to digital messenger pigeons.
Effectively. Cool.
One last thing,
Awesome.
there's a road around here and mountain, I think, or forest called Mingus. So it's better. It's better than Migadoo, in my opinion.
There's
Mingus.
definitely residents. Yeah. I like.
We were very pleased when that approached our eyeballs. We were like, "Oh, Mingus, huh? Mingus Ave,
Mingus.
a Mingus
It's a
among
nice
us."
name.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's short for mountain dingus.
Mountain dingus. That's perfect. We're a bunch of minguses.
Mm-hmm. A bunch of
Yeah.
mountain dinguses.
What else?
Like a mountain goat, you know.
Ooh, I really
Mingus.
like Mingus Mountain. It's good.
Mm.
The trek of Mingus Mountain.
Future product name.
I mean, I think it's just describing what we're doing. It's a trek up Mingus Mountain.
Mingus, man. It's very recursive.
Yeah. Cool. All right. Well,
Awesome.
till next time.
Later.
Thanks, everybody.
Yep.
Thanks for driving.
Have a great Monday.
Yeah,
Yep.
thanks. See you
No
later.
worries.
Thank you.
Nope.
Peace.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.